Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live lesson with Adam Rasheed. We are going to be learning some serious sketch stuff. So we are going to be jumping into a lesson in mobile user interface design using Sketch and the latest features and updates. So we are joined by Adam Rasheed, who is going to take us through this design in the 1 hour session where he will be teaching us how to use Sketch and build this wonderful design. And then you can then start entering your questions for Adam in the chat area, which is located on your right if you are viewing this right here on Webinar Jam. Then, start fielding your questions, say hi. I'll be manning the chat room, so feel free to filter any questions over to me or field them over to me, and I'll get them through to Adam. So that's the way that this works. So welcome, and let me know where you're all coming from. I'm in Australia, Adam's in the United States. So let's see how far we can get in this webinar. All right, so now I guess I'll introduce you, Adam. Say hi.
Hey guys, how's it going? My name's Adam Rasheed, and I am a freelance developer and designer. And I just released a new course on Sketch 4 on SitePoint. So I'm here to show you how Sketch works.
Excellent. So can you give us a little bit of information about what you're going to be covering in today's live lesson?
Yeah, sure. Let me actually pull up my screen to show you exactly what I'm going to be working with. Well, in this live lesson, we're going to be covering how to create a mobile user interface in Sketch. If you've signed up for this webinar, I'm guessing you know what Sketch is. For those of you that don't, it's an amazing UI tool built from the ground up for user interface design. And what I'm going to be covering in this lesson is I'm going to be going over how to create the mobile screen size for this blog I created for the Sketch 4 course that we just released. So this looks a little intimidating, but we're going to break down exactly how to create different text styles and shapes and use all the features in Sketch that help us to really speed up our workflow. So this is the finished file, but we're going to start off actually with our wireframes. And wireframes are exactly that. They're like the blueprint of your design. So I created these during our course, and we're going to be working off of these. And as you can see, it's just text and lines and different kind of placeholder images, just to give us an idea of the layout. Now, when creating a user interface in 2016, you want to make sure you design mobile first, because over 60% of all traffic is coming through a mobile device. So you want to keep that in mind and really make sure your mobile design is a big priority, and then you work your way up to tablet and then desktop. And what we're going to do is we're going to dive right in and get started by creating a new page and calling it design. And now we're going to press A to create an artboard. And let's press iPhone 7. Cool. And let's just drag out the height real quick. So what we're going to do now is set up a good layout. And Sketch is amazing with its layout and grid features, because when you're creating any type of visual design, even in graphic design, you want to work off of a grid or a layout to really make sure you have a unified design that just looks right and has some uniformity to it. So we can go to layout settings, and let's do a 4-column grid, and we want a gutter width of 32 pixels. And the reason for that is I love creating my designs off of an 8-pixel grid that allows me to really scale up and down the components and elements I want in a really uniform scale based off of an 8-pixel grid. So 32 is a multiple of 8, and it works really well for us. So let's take a look at the wireframes again and see exactly what we're going to be creating. So this is a blog that I'm actually developing on my own on the side, and it's going to be for freelancers. And it's really going to show freelancers how they can switch over from a 9-to-5 job to full-time freelancing. And I want it to be a resource for exactly that demographic and have content that really helps people looking to transition over to freelancing. And the way I wanted to do that is with a blog and have helpful articles that teach you how to do exactly that. So I designed this blog, and I wanted to really focus on the content, not so much on fancy graphics or images. So we have exactly that. We have different blog articles right here. We have the logo right here, the hamburger menu icon right here. Underneath that, we have different categories they can select from, and your social media icons, as well as resources widget and popular posts. And I'm going to be creating an ebook as well. So we're going to have a little section for that, as well as an email opt-in area where they can sign up to an email list, and then your footer. And that grows into a traditional main area and then a sidebar area layout once you increase the screen size to a tablet and then a desktop. Then after the course was over, I actually went back and kind of rethought the design. And since I really was thinking of mobile first, I thought that having the categories you could sort through all the way down here didn't really make sense. So I brought them up here and created this pick a category area. So when you're on your phone, you can tap this and these categories slide down, and then you can pick it, and then it filters out all those blog posts in that category. For instance, if you tapped on business, you'd only see business articles. So with that in mind, we'll actually create that new layout that I'm working on. So let's dive right in and start creating these icons. UI elements. So we're starting off pretty simple. It's just going to be the logo and then the hamburger icon. So let's go to our design page.
Hey, Adam.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to know, do you have these files available anywhere, or will you be making these files available anywhere for after the live lesson?
Yes, I will be. First of all, they are included in the sketch course, and I can email you a zip file with, first of all, the icons right here that I'm using. And most of these are open source assets. So you can actually, I'll tell you exactly where to get them online in case you don't want to download the zip file. And then as well as the stock photos that I'm using. These are all open source. I have an MIT license, which allows you to use them for whatever purpose you want.
Excellent. All right. So for those who have registered, you'll have an email, a follow-up email with all of those links included. Okay. Excellent. I'll let you get back to it. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks. So let's start off with the logo. So in this file, I already have the logo set up. So we're just going to go here and just copy this, Command C it. And of course, this will be included in the file. So we go back here and we just Command paste it. And next up, we're going to be using this Navicon icon. Now, the source I got these from are ionicons.com, or it's the icons made for the Ionic framework. So you can go to icons and then download these. And then they're all open source, as I mentioned. And I took the time to find the ones that worked and pick them out. So for the sake of this tutorial, we're not going to spend time looking for the perfect ones because I already found them here. But when you're designing a project on your own, you want to really make sure that you pick the right icons for the project at hand. So we can just drag this in. And you'll see it's pretty big. So what we're going to do is size this down right here. We're going to make sure that this lock icon is on. That makes everything, the proportions locked in. So we're just going to do 16 height and unlock this. I like keeping things a pixel grid, and I don't like having sub-pixel sizes because one, it doesn't really look right, and Two, when you export it as a PNG or anything that's not an SVG, it turns out really blurry. So yeah, you can, since it's a hamburger icon, it doesn't really need to be exact proportions, so you can make it fit to the grid that you're working with. Now we're going to press R for a rectangle and create this kind of background for it. And then we can press Command Option down and once more to make it jump all the way to the back. And what we want to do now is make sure that we have the correct spacing. And how I'm checking the spacing out is just simply hovering over the item I want and pressing down Option. This is one of my favorite features of Sketch. And we want to size this to where it's 16 pixels from every side. And instead of having to drag and drop like this, we can actually press down Command and press up and go up by 1 increments. In 2020, this is looking good. What we can also do now is make this white and go here and press Command R to rename it. Let's press it background. Navicon, let's clean this up as well. I like organizing as I go along, and I'm pressing Command Shift G to ungrip these. Now I have these 3 rectangles. I can press Union, and it's a shape now. Call it Navicon. Now what we can do is simply select these 3 items that we have, and then we can create a symbol. Call it letter. What symbols do is they allow you to repeat a lot of different elements in your design. For instance, when you're creating something like a user interface with multiple screens, instead of having to copy paste or even just create the same element over and over again, you can just simply create a symbol and then say it's another screen. We can just simply go to Insert, Symbol, Header Mobile, and have it right there. And this really makes things convenient. And it's a great feature that Sketch has that I haven't really seen any other UI tool have yet. So we have our header now. And let's go back to the blueprints or the wireframes page. Instead of having to press this and go up, we can actually press FN, which is on the bottom left of your keyboard, and 1 to jump pages, and up to jump pages. And we're back at our wireframes. Now what we have here as far as the blogs go is a featured blog post, which is bigger and more prominent than the others, and then a handful of blog posts below that. And then a load more button, which loads more, instead of having like a pagination where it's 1, 2, 3 next type of thing. You can just simply load the next batch of blog posts. And that helps to create a really good user experience. So let's take a look at what the different parts are of a blog post. We have the category up top, the title, and underline, the date, and the number of comments in it. So you'll see that these are all different titles. And the way I made these and generated the data for these titles is actually I'm using a great plugin called Craft. You can Google Craft plugin Sketch. It's made by the guys at InVision, which is a really cool prototyping app that works really well with Sketch. You can go to Craft InVision and simply download the plugins. And you'll see I already have that up here. And it actually installs a manager for you. And it actually is like 4 plugins wrapped up into one. As data, duplicate, library, and sync. We use the data plugin right here and to create these titles. And how you can access it is once you install it, you'll see this Craft plugin on the side right here, which is actually quite a perfect place for it. You can go to data, and you have custom, web, and JSON. Now, custom is different kind of pre-populated pieces of data that the Craft plugin comes with. Like you can generate random names, headlines, articles, dates, and so forth. I use headlines for this. You can actually go to live websites and scrape data from there. And if you are a developer or working with developers, you can grab a JSON file and populate your design with live data from your project, which is really fantastic. So let's do that right now. Let's set up one of these blog articles, and then we can populate it with different types of data. So let's jump back to our design. And before we do that, I actually forgot, we need to put an underline in here. So jump in here, and we're going to go to the artboard that header mobile is in, and we're going to create an underline. Again, press down Option to see the spacing. We want it to be flush, so 0 spacing. And let's do a height of 8. Let's just make sure that is the correct height. Perfect. And let's just copy this hex code. It's actually height of 16. Perfect. Another great way to manipulate sizes is once you're in the area to change the height, instead of having to type in different things, if you want to double it, just do asterisk and 2. There you go. It's really convenient. And then type in the hex. And you have document colors and global colors. Global colors are when you create swatches and you add them to global colors, they'll show up on every new sketch file that you create. Document colors are specific to this very document. So if you add this, it'll only show up on this document when you open it up again. So I picked this nice blue color. I'm going to use the same one here. And we have our header now. So we can go up here and press resize to fit, and it'll be exactly the size that the content is in within this artboard. So let's go back, and you'll see that the symbol actually reflected the changes that we made in the in the symbols page. So this is another great feature of symbols is when you make a change, it'll reflect it throughout every instance that the symbol is being used in your design. So let's work on our featured blog post first. So we have to do something like business. And let's talk about the typography tool now, or the type tool. In this design, I'm going to be using system fonts, which come with your Macs. I'm going to be using Helvetica Neue and Georgia, which are both system fonts. And we're going to be using this 4A color, which is a really nice dark gray color. Just a quick rule of thumb, when you're designing user interfaces, you don't want to do just black and white for text. It looks a little too stark. So you want to lighten up the text color a little bit if you're going to be designing on a white background. Let's go back to the design and see what this is all about. So we have our category, and you'll notice that it's small. And we have a 14 pixel size and a 16 pixel line. So when you're designing on an 8 pixel grid, like I mentioned, you can have the size be whatever you want, but as long as the line height is within the pixel grid that you're creating in, it usually lines up pretty well. So we have our 14 pixel size and our 16 pixel line height, which is pretty cool. And let's go regular. Let's do a new text style. I'm working off of the already created text styles, but if you are creating your design from scratch, you can go down and create new text style, and you can have it be whatever you want. But for the purpose of this design, we already have a category business. You'll see we're using that blue color again, and it is 14 pixel size and 16 pixel line height. And now let's focus on our heading. So this is where we can go to the craft plugin, go to heading, and let's do technology. And it's a pretty dated headline. Make MySpace your best design space. Let's do another one. Okay, that doesn't look as dated. So let's pull this up and make sure it fits within our layout. Perfect. And let's take a look at our design again. And we have H1 Mega Mobile. So H1 Mega Mobile. See, it's Helvetica New, it's bold, and it's 32. And we can actually change, let's change the line height here. Let's make it 40. And I believe this should be how this looks flashed. Okay, so let's pick a new headline. This is a little too wordy for us. Perfect. Okay, and underneath that, let's take a look at our wireframes again. We have this title, and then underneath that we have a banner, and then we have our metadata, which is our post date and the comments. So let's go back. I believe this should have 16 pixel. Yeah, looks good. 16 and 8. Okay, cool. Again, when I try to work off of a 8 pixel grid, and it starts to look really nice. And we can go here. And I want this to be the same color as the category color. So essentially, in the design, you have a different color for every category. For instance, you have business, which is blue. You have your podcast, which links to the podcast, and that has actually a white color with a blue background. You have marketing, which is red, lifestyle, business again, creativity, and so forth. So we want to keep that in mind. Go here, and we have a banner color or category business. Let's see, 16. I believe it's 8. Let me double check. Or 2, actually. Yeah, it's 2 and 16 and then 8. Perfect. So we can go here and 2 and make sure it's 16 pixels down. Perfect. And let's create the metadata. This is, we're going to be using these icons again. So let's bring in the clock SVG. And let's down 16. Perfect. It's going to be 8 pixels away. Perfect. And let's ungrip this. Perfect. And union, not union. Correct. Perfect. Let clock. Rename this banner. So let's change the color of this as well. We have this dark gray color, 9B, 9B, 9B. And this is where we're going to start using Georgia. So let's do something like have meta right here. So you can see it's a Georgia font, and it's regular, and it's 16 pixels, and it's the same 9B color. Let's make sure it is 8 pixels down. And it's perfect. So what we're going to do here is we're going to turn this into a symbol, call it icon/clock. And we're going to use our data right here to generate dates. Just do perfect. Being from the US, this format bugs me, but it's fine. And we're going to also do the same thing for our comments. But the comments doesn't need to be created from the craft. It can just be a comment. Just stay 0 comments. So go here and do the same thing, 16. And we'll align this so we know where it is. Perfect. And undo. And again, go here and create this. Perfect. Make sure it is aligned well. Perfect. And we'll create a new area, call it text. Comments. Meta. Perfect. Awesome. Create a new symbol from here as well. Call it icon. Comment. Perfect. So what we're going to do now is group this simply by selecting all these and pressing Command G and call it post featured, or featured post actually. --post. Now it seems a little trivial to have to rename things as you go along, but when you're working with a team or even prototyping this yourself later in Vision or Framer or whatever, it really helps to have organized elements within their proper groups. So let's make sure that the order is correct as well. Perfect. And now this is a new feature in Sketch. We're going to actually have resizing tools now that weren't available when I was first recording the course for this. So what we have in our options in our tool belt is stretch, pin to corner, resize, object, and float in place. Now, by default, everything is stretched. So when you stretch things like this, you'll see that the icons are stretching out. The width containers for the text are stretching out, and it just doesn't look all that pleasant. So what you can do is actually pin different things to corners. Let's say we want to pin this to a corner. That means no matter how we resize this, that icon is always going to stay in the corner and not get stretched out. It's very cool. So let's do that with this here as well. So if it's not in the corner, such as this date, it's going to find the nearest corner, which is right here, and it's going to try to pin itself to that. So we can do the same for this, and same for this. Now this we can allow to stretch as well as this. And other than that, it should work pretty well when we resize it. Pretty cool. Now we have that. And let's check out the size here. I believe it's 32. Let me double check though. $32, yep. And now what we're going to do is actually create the normal blog posts. And we're actually going to leave out podcast for now because it's just a fuss to create the background in blue and then white over again. So we're going to focus on marketing, lifestyle, creativity, and so forth. So let's simply copy this down. Do that. And then move this down. Move this down. Name it, call it post. Let's call it post 1. Now let's go to our data. We're actually going to create new data. Going to add item. We're going to add custom. We're going to call this categories. We're going to type in business, marketing, lifestyle, creativity. And we're going to save that. And we're just going to press this and going to press new headline. Technology is fine. Perfect. And we're going to also press date one more time. Okay. And what we're going to do now is go to duplicate and vertical. Before we do that, let's make sure we have the sizing correct. 64. Okay. So what duplicate lets you do is create different instances of the data that you're creating with specific sizing between each, or specific spacing between each one. And the difference between doing this and copy paste is it lets you create and populate new data with every instance or with every duplication. So let's check this out. You'll see that it created a new title every time, and it created a random category from the list that I gave it. I know the spacing's a little off, but we can fix that in like really 2 seconds, 30 seconds more like. But yeah, this saves us quite a bit of time. The only thing I don't like is it creates a group for you and then masks it. So let's delete this mask. And let's ungroup this. Let's work from the top or from the bottom up. Let's give this a shorter headline. All right, that's good. Perfect. And marketing is perfect. And you can do that so forth, but actually have this ready for you guys. And this is what it looks like. So let's just copy this and paste that in. Press copy, go back to our design, get rid of this, and simply paste it. Make sure it's spaced out correctly. Perfect. And we want this to jump to the top, so we can press Command, Option, Control up, and it'll jump right to the top, and we can do the same with the header. So are there any questions so far?
So no questions on our front, but what I did find interesting is I've taken a couple of polls, and it seems as if 38% of our audience have learned how to use Sketch through our content. So whether that's a book or a course, maybe it's one of your courses, Adam, or maybe even articles. So that's really interesting to hear. Now, 27% are saying that, or 33, it's switching now, are actually saying that they're learning how to use Sketch through this live lesson here right now. So good on you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's really good. Actually, that's increasing now as I'm speaking. 21% have just kind of winged it. So I'm curious, how did you learn how to use Sketch?
I learned Sketch at a very good time. I was looking for a way to really increase my tool belt of design. I was a developer first, so I designed with code with HTML, CSS, but I wanted to do some like gradient stuff that I couldn't do in CSS3 yet, and a whole bunch of things. And I somehow found out about Sketch, and I got a trial, and I've really picked it up like within an hour. I think that's why a lot of people are already learning Sketch in this live lesson. It's built from the ground up with UI design in mind. And before this, you actually just had Photoshop, and I believe you have Fireworks, but more people used Photoshop for UI design. And it's not meant for UI design, it's meant for photo editing. So you had to do a lot of workarounds, got a lot of plugins and extensions to make it kind of like hack it together to produce UIs. But this is such an incredible tool. It just helps you right off the bat, and you can figure out within an hour or so and get right into it and really focus on your design and not let bad design get in the way. You can really just focus on what you want to create, and this helps you extend your reach of design skills. It's really cool.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we do have one question in that time. Renee wants to know, in your design, why did you get rid of the long headlines? What's your thinking behind that?
Well, I was thinking that I wouldn't create long headlines myself. I more or less wanted these generated headlines as placeholders for actual headlines I'd create. If you were creating for a client that you didn't know the content that you would be creating, you would design for the worst case scenario, meaning the kind of 60 character long headlines that you saw could be a possibility. Then you would throw those in. But for me, I'm going to be the one developing this site, so I know exactly the type of content I'm going to be creating, and that's just a personal reason I didn't do it. Yeah.
Excellent. So do you have a preferred or recommended character length when it comes to heading sizes?
Yeah, it's actually, you can look up SEO best practices, but SEO wise, you don't want to have it too long. I would say character length or like word length, 10 to 15 words is good for SEO ranking purposes. Aesthetically, I like shorter link sizes. Like this wouldn't, like the Flash tutorial, this wouldn't be a great SEO article headline, but it looks good in the design. And that's the kind of key difference you want to keep in mind when you're designing sites for a client versus when you're designing stuff for your portfolio. For your portfolio, you can have aesthetic first, and then for your client, you want to make sure, you are being realistic in the type of content they're going to be creating. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And now we've got a new question from Bobby as well. He's asking, Adam, is CSS exported from Sketch generally usable as is, or do you have to do some additional work?
That's a great question, actually. I've used CSS exports from Sketch, but I don't use them in the way that they export it. Let's just do a quick example. Let's do a gradient real quick. Oops. All right. So we have this gradient. This actually looks pretty good. So let's rename this, call it background gradient. So what we can do is we'll copy the CSS attributes. We'll open up a text editor. And let's see, this is already a project I'm working on. So you can just press Command V, and you'll see that it creates a note for you, background gradient, and then background image, and it shows you this CSS3 property of linear gradient. And if you have brackets installed, it actually gives you a cool little preview of what it's going to look like. So I don't really keep this note in. I just use this background gradient, and then I'll copy it and add it to whatever elements need to have that type of gradient background. So yeah, it is helpful, but I don't just blindly copy paste it. I'm very particular about what part of the code I use.
Excellent. And, you know, because you come from a perfect split of where you were a developer previously and you are now a design, or you also work with design, what is it like using Sketch? Are there any benefits in Sketch that you would like to highlight to developers or make designers aware so that when they are working with developers, they have little things that they can do to their designs to make it easier for a developer to recreate?
Well, I think Sketch is actually really good out of the bat to be developer friendly. The biggest thing is the distance and the measuring tools. With things like Photoshop, it's really hard to measure, and you'd have to really um, send a Word doc of all the measurements between your elements. But send a developer a sketch file, they can just go in and press Option and know the exact measurements and the sizing. And like we just covered, the CSS attributes. If they want to be really lazy, they can just like copy the CSS attributes for every element. Other than that, I like that they have a very good layout tool, and universally almost, if you develop or if you design around a 12 pixel grid or 12 column layout, which breaks down to 8 columns on tablet and then 4 columns on mobile, like so. Developers can use popular frameworks like Bootstrap or the Zerb Foundation or a Bourbon Neat, which all have 12 column layouts like as a default. So it's really easy to develop them right there. But then again, that's all design. So you want to make sure that you're designing with good practices in mind, and the actual program that you're using, like Sketch, should be able to allow developers to come right in and like not have to worry about learning it. Just know that they can use Option and check out the distances, and press Command and click to go through groups like I'm doing right here. This is a group, but if I Command click an element, it'll go right into that layer, as you can see, and then you can check out the different distances from there. So as long as you have good communication with your developer, Sketch is honestly one of the best programs to hand off to a developer to.
Excellent. All right. So there are 15 minutes left of this live lesson, so I'll let you get back into your design. Now, for everybody else that's watching, send through your questions because I'll interrupt Adam in the last 5-10 minutes,
Cool.
something about there. And, you know, field your questions to make sure that we meet the mark. All right. I'm muting. I'll let you continue.
Awesome. Thanks for the question so far, guys. Yeah, like Angela mentioned, just shoot over a question and I'll be happy to answer during the end of the course. For now, let's finish off this project. So we have these right here, and then we have a load more button now that we need to make. Let's just simply create that. Press T, type in load more. And this isn't part of the design, but I want to show you a new feature of Sketch, which is text transform. You can this is a CSS property as well, and you can transform it to uppercase or lowercase, all through the styling, not to the actual typing out your uppercase or lowercase characters. So if I turn this off or turn this to lowercase, it'll change all that, which is really cool. So let's do that. I'm going to center that up. Let's see if we have a text style, button text. Okay, cool, we have that. But before we do that, let's create the actual button. Let's see. It is 56. Perfect. And we can create a new shared style, call it button blue. The way I'm getting this little gradient here is actually I'm using the shadow tool without a blur. So it gives us almost this kind of border type of look and feel. So we can put that below here. And button text. Perfect. And let's center this up. Select the two and center this up. Now, since we have this little border here, we'll need to make this go up a bit. Looks good. Press Control L to turn off the layouts. It's looking good. That's much better. Okay, so what we can do here is create a symbol again, call it button, blue, go to a symbol, and make sure that this text is float in place. And what that does is it literally floats in place, so you can mess around with the size of the button all you want. Good. What we're going to do now quickly is we don't have too much time to cover the this area, but we will copy this, pick a category, all of these, and let's shift down to move them down, and just simply put this here, center this up, sure it is pixels. By the way, I'm using big nudges, which is pressing shift and up. And you'll notice that it's actually moving in increments of 16. The reason for that is I have a plugin called Nudge It. You can Google Nudge It. And by default, the big nudge is 10 pixels. I changed it to 16 so I can work with an 8 pixel grid much easier. And then you press apply and changes it that way. It's pretty neat. Cool, we have that. And let's focus on creating one of these areas right here. So it's the resource tool. So let's check that out. You'll also notice that there are a lot of override options for symbols. So for instance, we have this right here. Maybe I don't want it to say resources. Maybe I wanted to say free ebooks. Enter, and you'll see that overrode the symbol. So this is a really cool option for instances where you want to have something that looks similar but has slightly different content. So instead of say, yeah, instead of go to resources, we can do ebook. Perfect. That's a really cool option too. So let's go to the actual symbol. We have this resources, which is a group. It has the banner, the title, the copy, the button, and a resources area, and a background image and a border. So let's make that in our document from scratch. So let's turn on R. R is simply a rectangle. Press 0 right here. Oops. 0. Okay, and group, call it all the way down. And mask. And C, Command V, create an overlay. And before we do that, before we put the image in, let's just create a title for it. It's H2 and H3 white. This is 2 pixels. And we can turn on our layout and make sure it's lined up. Perfect, and make sure it's 16 pixels away. Perfect. And create our make sure it's white. Copy this right here. H3 white. Perfect. And we just simply need to create a new button. So we'll just use our symbol that we just created and put that in here. And we'll give that to 40. 40 looks much better. And we'll do, this is where we can use our override again to resources. Perfect. Scene looks like 24. Looks much better. Looks good. Now we can add our image. So we're going to be using this image. Let's copy that, put that in here by pressing Command V. See that it's huge. So what we're going to do now is put that between the overlay and the mask. Go to Mask, right click and press Mask. Turn off the visibility for overlay. You'll see that it's limited to this containing mask. So let's scale this down. This is much like Illustrator, Photoshop. Option Shift to scale this down uniformly. Perfect. And what we can do now is we can actually go here and go to Gaussian blur, turn that on. We get a nice blurred background. We can go to overlay and see if we have an overlay area. If not, we can just simply go to our design. We have an overlay right here, which is 4A and 60%. We can actually do a little bit better, make it less gray, more black. We do straight up black and do something like this. We can actually go to blue and type in. It looks much better. Now it has a bluer tint, which kind of creates a better looking, more uniform design. And go back here and increase the blur a bit. And there you go. And let's see if we're missing. We're going to skip this because this is essentially the same. What we're going to do now is create popular post. I'm actually just going to copy it and then show you how exactly I made it. Okay, so we have just basic text right here, and then we have H3, which is 16, but it's Helvetica bold. And this is where it helps to, like, everything is stretch. So you can just simply down one, actually. So we can big stretch it up, big nudge stretch. Just Command Shift right, and it's fully flush with the layout. And yeah, and see if there's anything else we can show you how to do. So you can notice that I'm also using backgrounds for areas like the footer. Even though it's just the text right here, we have a rectangle or the footer background like this. So copy that and hide that. In your design, you can paste it and oops. Save this as a symbol. Footer. So the benefits of saving the area that's going to be essentially the padding is, say you have something like this right here, and let's say you're done with the design. You can simply go to your artboard and press resize to fit, and it'll refit it to the area that you have here. Now, if I didn't have this kind of background area with all this white space, it would just cut it off to the very end right here. And that's not a really good looking way to end your design. Same principle applies to this header that we made in the beginning. Notice that I added a background, and when we resize the artboard to fit, it accounts for this background that we made. And that's really cool. And yeah, that essentially is how I created the user interface for this design. And if you haven't already, make sure to sign up for the course for Sketch 4, and you will get to see how I made the elements for the bigger design, bigger screen sizes, such as the tablet and the mobile tablet and the desktop. You'll see how I scale up design sizes. For instance, let's talk about scaling up typography. This is very design specific. It's not really something that Sketch controls, but you have to account for. You have to realize that when you have type that someone's looking at on a phone, it's going to be much smaller than someone's looking at on an iPad or their desktop. So a good way to systematically do this is you can check out resources like Typescale. And what that does is it gives you a really good guideline to follow. And the bigger your screen size, the bigger you can make your type scale. For instance, say we have a desktop size blog. This is using this 1.41 augmented fourth type scale. You'll see that each next up heading is much bigger than the last. This is H1, H2, H3, so forth. And you can, it doesn't have to be this exact like decimal, but you can round it to the nearest number that makes sense. For instance, if you're trying to round this to the nearest 16 pixel grid, you can do that too. And the smaller your screen size gets, the smaller you want to make your scale. So for instance, if desktop is 1.414, you can do say 1.25. You'll see that the size changes aren't as drastic. So this makes more sense for, say, a mobile screen size. So did you guys want me to cover anything else that you see here that I didn't cover?
So I'll interrupt you just here, Adam. We have reached our 1 hour limit. So let me just quickly field 4 questions across to you before we start wrapping up. Sure. First of all, Mike wants to know, do you use symbols across artboard sizes for different devices, or do you create symbols for each artboard?
Well, I used to create different ones for each screen size, but now that Sketch 40s, actually this is 3.9, I believe, they have resizing tools. So within a symbol now, you can say pin this to a corner, and you can, for instance, if you didn't want to have different content, say, for instance, the tablet actually has all the menu links laid out. But if you had the same sort of format as your mobile, you could simply just, I'll create a one right now. Header, mobile. You can simply do this and just drag it out, and it would make sense if you positioned it right. For instance, you have to pin this to corner so it doesn't stretch. So you can do things like this. So it really makes it easier for you to change it and adapt it to the different screen sizes. The only thing that you would want to create a new symbol for is, like I mentioned, when you change your content within or content format within the symbol. And yeah.
Excellent. All right. So now Bobby wants to know, are there any plugins that can automate vertical rhythm of text elements given a base unit?
None that I'm aware of, and the ones that have been out, I've tried messing with them, and it gets a little too fussy. I would say use the type scale I showed you as a guideline, and then fit it into your grid. And something I didn't mention as much is you can control your vertical rhythm by pressing Control G, which is your actual grid. And you'll notice that you can do things like just fit it to exactly your grid. And of course, you can change the grid settings here. You'll see that I have an 8-pixel grid, and I think I've been preaching all live lesson long. And you can make sure it fits nice and tidy within your design, and it establishes a good vertical rhythm. But as far as like exact dimensions go, it really depends on your project. For instance, if you're working on something that's more typography heavy like this, you want to make sure that your text really stands out. In that case, use a larger type scale like I am. Or if you have something where the text is secondary and you're focusing more on like designs and illustrations, then it doesn't need to be as large necessarily. And yeah, it really is it depends question whether or not what exactly your type scale should be. But to answer your question, there's no specific plugins I can mention right away.
Excellent. All right. So Melissa wants to know, when organizing symbols and type styles using the / what groupings do you find works best?
What I like using is for different states. I'm coming from a developer background. I have just the regular one right here, as you can see, and then you'll see I have different screen sizes, and then whether or not it's centered. And that helps break things down. And then the thing I use a dash for it is when it's a different color, such as white. So you can do H2. This is a perfect example. You have regular H2 right here, and then you have H2 center. Then you have H2 white, and then you have H2 white center within that. And that's what works best for me. And if it works great for you, then feel free to use that. But if you find something better, make sure to use that and let us know about it. But this is what's been working well for me for over a year now. So I've been sticking to that.
Sorry, I was starting to ask a question and I didn't realize that I was on mute. All right. So the last question was from Nina. I feel like you may have already answered this, but maybe there's something that you can add to it. She wanted to know, why are you leaving so much space between element groups? Is it just so it looks spaced out, or is there a technical reason for this?
Well, it's both. Good design is problem solving, and there's a lot of reason behind different decisions people make. Using white space is universally a very good thing, especially in UI design where where pixels are free. The more something is spaced out, the more attention you can give it when you're looking at it. If this is all bunched up, first it would look like one big thing, and it wouldn't look as nice. And it would look messy. Now that they're spaced out, you can actually go through it and see that they're see the different hierarchy between them, and you'll see that the more something is closer, or the closer something is, the more it belongs to that group, and the closer it is in the vicinity, the closer you see it in your mind and you associate it with that. So you'll see that the metadata below and the category above is close to the title, but the actual groups themselves are far apart, because you should be able to discern the difference between the different posts. And as I mentioned, you can give each different post a little bit more attention so you know where to tap. And that's the reason I like using white space between different elements.
Excellent. So for everybody that's attended, thank you very much. I love that everyone comes from all different parts of the world. Some of these countries I've been to myself, so I really miss and love it when I hear that you come from those places. All right, so thank you, Adam, for giving us such a nice detailed lesson on creating your UI design for, I think the blog was Freelance Jump?
Yes.
Yes. All right, cool. So hopefully we'll see those changes live on your site soon. Yeah.
It's
I hope that you've really learned something from this. Feel free to send me a message on Twitter. It's __Angela Molina, or hit Adam up. Adam, what's your Twitter handle?
It's at Rasheed Photo. A Rasheed Photo. So Adam, A Rasheed, and then photo. You can hit me up and ask anything you want, and I'm pretty good at replying right away. Excellent. So thanks again for having me, Angela. Appreciate it. And I hope you guys found this useful. And thanks for giving us an hour of your day.
Yeah, definitely. So you have all registered. Everybody that's here watching this live, we will send you an email with an update of where to find this video live. If in case you want to watch it again, we'll be writing up a couple of things about it on SitePoint. Now, Hector, you asked if whether we're going to write about the attendance. Maybe not so much the attendance, but definitely a recap on what we've learned from this session. So look out for that on SitePoint. If you have any suggestions, if you have any feedback, you know how to find me on Twitter at __Angela Molina. I'm at SitePoint. So thank you very much for attending, and I love the little thanks that are coming in. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Nadia. Hopefully we catch you soon. And if you want to learn more about Sketch, I've sent a link in the chat room, which has a link to all our Sketch content. So that's articles, books, and the course. Obviously, check out the course on SitePoint Premium. It's user interface design with Sketch 4, so it has been updated to Sketch 40 and includes all the new features as well. Apart from that, I think you can even download a Sketch cheat sheet right now if you go to sitepoint.com, so look out for that. It's free. So anything to help you learn. Anyway, so we'll see you at the next live event, and thanks. Catch you around.
Thanks, guys.